Academic Standards Committee meeting of the Council Rock School Board. We are joined by a number of folks, and we will be discussing a few things tonight regarding textbook approvals and coursework. The first item up is Honors Experimental Research STEM. And if we could go around the room, I realize there's a lot of us, but if everybody who's listening could know who's here, it would be helpful. So I am Kyle McKessie, and I am a member of the school board.
I'm Sue Elliott, Assistant Superintendent.
Barry Desko, Director of K-12 Education.
Jerry Grupp, School Board.
Andy Block, School Board.
Mike Thorward, School Board.
Margaret Jung, student.
Matt Frederickson, Director of IT.
Debbie Mackey, Family and Consumer Sciences.
Dean Hens, Social Studies Coordinator.
Lynn Young, World Language Coordinator.
Amy Lafferty, Special Ed North. Andrea Lehman, Curriculum Coordinator for Secondary ELA. Kristen Park, Richborough Middle School, English.
Nancy Kaplan, Holland Middle School, Literacy. Jennifer Todd, 6th grade, elementary school, Hillcrest Elementary School. Amy Smith, Holland Elementary School, 6th grade.
Renee Devlin, Science Coordinator. Caroline, student. Tiger Jones, student at Council Rock Hall.
Erickson, English Language Arts Coordinator, elementary.
Therese Grateful, teacher at Council Rock Hall.
And we have two board members who actually just joined us as well, and Dr. Frazier is walking in the room. Denise Brooks has joined us, and Ed Tate has joined us, and if you two could.
Richard Hudson, student. Lou Long, student.
Okay. Folks in the back?
Parents of students.
Proud parents of students.
Yeah. Where are your students from? How are you?
Go home.
All right,
And Dr. Frazier is in the house.
Hello.
excellent. All right, so in 2015, the board approved the addition of a new course for our seniors, the Honors Experimental Research in STEM. And we've offered this course with success, and this year have two classes, one in each of our high schools. And in this course, the students, you will learn very soon, are researching topics of their own choosing in STEM-related fields. And they've been working as teachers to improve the course and think about what to do with it. So one of the things that you're always also going to see tonight is a book for textbook approval that will be a resource used in this STEM course moving forward that the students have been piloting as well this year in the course. So we have two teachers of this course. Dr. Teresa Grateful is here tonight, and Mr. Jerry Fetter, who is not able to be with us. I'm going to turn the program over to Dr. Grateful to talk a little bit about the course, and then we are honored to have 4 students tonight give a brief presentation of their research.
Thank you for letting us come tonight. As Ms. Elliott said, we did approve this course 2 years ago, so we're just wrapping up our second year. It's actually, oh good, I did. So the goal of the course is actually, in most science courses, it's very curriculum based. In this science course, it's really the first one to be entirely skill based. So students learn the science skills developing a project of their own choosing. So they will pick the subject area, they'll narrow it down to a research question, and it really is STEM. It can be science, technology, engineering, math. We have computer science, well, I'll show you on the next one. So we go all the way from they don't know what they're gonna do to projects that they present in 3 different forums with posters, with a research article, and they have presentations. They have a competition, which actually they're going to next week, which is just a PowerPoint kind of presentation that they're doing at Penn State next week. At this point, it's currently available to honor seniors. And again, we have 2 courses, and next year we expect to have 2 courses as well. So I tried to get kind of a breakdown. So it's hard to read the little ones, but the big topics you can kind of see there's a lot of focus on biology, biochemistry, environment, energy, computer science, and engineering. So we have quite the variety of projects available. I'm going to leave these. If anybody's interested, we're having 2 poster sessions at Council Rock North that anybody is welcome to come to talk to the students. So the students will be in our library and they'll have their posters, and these are examples of posters. They'll have their posters set up. If you have a chance to come I would really recommend it. They are actually stunning. So what we did tonight is we brought 4 students, 2 from Council Rock South and 2 from Council Rock North, to just give you kind of a little overview of their projects, so you kind of see the variety and the level at which they actually are working. So I will introduce Pooja Gupta, Chloe Sarzalik, Piper Jones, and Charlotte Lang. So Pooja.
Pooja, do you want to put your poster right over here so people can see it?
I'll just remind everybody when you speak, the mic, unfortunately, because we have such a large group, please speak up or when your opportunity to stand close, because the microphones are only on the table. And as we broadcast this, that helps the people at home here.
So for my project, I tested the effectiveness of curcumin as an antioxidant. Curcumin is found in the spice turmeric, which is commonly used in Indian cuisine, and it's used for many health purposes because it has many medicinal properties. So what antioxidants do, they stabilize free radicals. Free radicals are naturally occurring in our bodies. They are unstable because they don't have enough electrons, so they tend to steal hydrogen atoms from other organic structures such as cell membranes and proteins. And if this happens, this can cause oxidative damage to cell membranes, which could potentially result in mutations and maybe potentially cause illnesses such as cancer. So in my project, I use the free radical DBPH. And so when it's unstable, it shows a very dark violet color. And when it's mixed with a substrate such as curcumin, the curcumin will stabilize the DBPH and the dark purple color will decrease and fade out. So I use 6 different concentrations of curcumin. I use a stereo dilution to obtain these solutions. And as you can see in the pictures on the bottom, the first picture is with the least amount of curcumin, and as it goes to the bottom right, that's the most concentrated solution. So just by looking at these pictures, you can tell that it really did have an impact on stabilizing the DBPH. And if you look at the numbers, as the concentration of the curcumin increases, it stabilizes the DBPH even more. So when I ran the DBPH and curcumin through a spectrophotometer, it absorbed less of the wavelength. And so DBPH usually measures at 517 nanometers, and I had to change that around a little bit in my experiment. So in future experiments, I would have to try to determine exactly what wavelength it is absorbed at. But I did conclude that it in fact did work as an effective antioxidant, and I also calculated the percent inhibition at 50%, as you can see in these 2 graphs here, and they both showed an upward trend line. So it showed that it actually did in fact work.
Your space. You approve? Really good. Okay, Jerry, you can't, no, Mike's chemical engineering, right? Yeah. So Mike's in charge of chemical engineering.
You need more turmeric.
Yeah, kind of.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Where did you use the instrument that you used for the analysis?
I used a spectrophotometer, and that was provided by one of the chemistry teachers at my school.
I'm marvelous.
So is it district-owned item you used?
Yeah.
2 of them, that was the question. There's one at each high school.
Not ultraviolet, we would have wanted this.
Never missing an opportunity.
We can only be visible if you want to expand that range.
Pooja, when you started, did you come into this class thinking that this was something you wanted to research, or how did you come to choose this topic?
Well, my experiment is under biochemistry, and I actually did not intend on going into biochemistry. That was like one of the last subjects I wanted to go into. I wanted to focus on biology, but turmeric is used a lot in India, and my grandma has always said, if you're not feeling well, mix some turmeric and milk and drink that. So I was like, why not just use something that is in my daily life and see how that actually works and relates to research.
I love how you made that connection to something that's completely not scientific, but part of your family. That's great.
Any other questions?
Great job.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
And next we have Chloe, and Chloe has both her poster and she has a video that's going to be playing in the background as well.
When you play the video, then.
You can just play it whenever.
Okay, you have to remember one is done because it'll belong to you.
So for my project, I was trying to find the risk of concussion wearing a Ride Out 360 helmet. So I started looking at the football standards for helmets because my brother plays football. And right now, Noxie, which is the company who approves all the helmets, only uses the drop test, which calculates the linear acceleration of the head inside of but that doesn't really impact concussions at all. So they proposed a new standard called the pneumatic ram test, and that calculates the rotational acceleration of the head. So for my experiment, I decided to perform it. So I worked at a lab called ARCA performing this, and they actually had the pneumatic ram there ready for me to use. So I set up all the helmet locations where to set, and I decided to compare them to each other. Since the standard is still in getting approved, that everything's not perfect yet, so it's all relative to each other. So I decided to compare the different locations of the impacts against each other. Right now, the standard says about 6,000 radians per second would cause concussion, but since the impactor head, as you can see right there, that is not standard yet, which can cause a different rotational acceleration in each head, each impact. So what I found basically is that the side and the front boss is angled down at 45 degrees. Those have the highest risk of concussion. With this one had over 6,000 and this had slightly under. But if I was to continue, I want to test youth helmets, because when I was at the lab, I was talking to them and they said that youth helmets were even worse, which is kind of concerning considering you're developing brain when you're younger. And yeah, I just talked to them.
You said that the standards is currently in review,
Yeah, it's proposed.
and oftentimes those reviews, both for regulation and for standards, have a comment period for expert comment or public comment. Does this standard have a comment period? And are you going to submit?
I'm actually not sure yet, but I'm actually going to look into it, at least say that.
I would wholeheartedly recommend that, because one, they need you. You're not going for peer review on your submission right now, but it's wonderful if you submit to the comment period your documentation and your videos and what you have, because it will challenge someone professional in the industry to respond to your analysis. And just from the perspective of documenting it, what are you, a junior or senior this year? So it doesn't help you now, but you've already submitted. But even as you go for your master's,
Graduate school is still on the horizon.
and to actually have published something that then has a peer review component to it is a wonderful attribute. So it's really considered using the commentary period to submit your questions and documentation. It's a great way to get recognized.
Thank you.
And you used a local lab?
Yeah.
This is not school, somebody volunteered then? That's nice. I mean, where was it?
ARCA, it's on 2nd Street.
Okay. Did we help the students?
Mr. Fetter knew Dr. Gushu, who's the main guy.
Nice.
Great, really.
Thank you.
Professional level of stuff.
And isn't, Dr. Grateful, isn't that part of this course is connecting with mentors or community members that can help you in working through your research and your questions as
Right.
well?
We're trying to get mentors for most of the students and it's at different levels. The ability to get into labs is a tiny bit harder, a lot because of the whole having to get clearances. So a lot of colleges that used to support this level of research just don't want to have anything to do with it because it's just too hard anymore. So there used to be a lot more opportunity in the colleges, but there are still, we still have affiliations. ARCA is one that Mr. Fetter established this year. We worked also with Del Valle University. And so we are trying to get that kind of established rapport. The other thing that the kids can do is just online mentors by email. That is a little bit easier, and so the kids have done lots of their own seeking out, which is also part of learning to communicate with professionals, which is really an important skill that they're learning in this class.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Piper.
Hello. So my project is looking at mycoremediation, which is a form of bioremediation that uses mushrooms. So basically in my project, I grew pearl oyster mushrooms and looked at how pearl oyster mushrooms and the mycelium, which is like the vegetative roots of mushrooms, can actually break down petroleum hydrocarbons. So I actually grew mushrooms at my high school, which was pretty awesome. And I created a container for my samples, and it was basically quite a process in the beginning, cultivating mushrooms at high school. And then I grew a bunch of samples, and I injected these samples with varying amounts of diesel fuel. And I looked at how the mushroom samples I used were able to break down the diesel fuel that I injected. And I saw that even with exposure to this diesel fuel, my samples were still able to produce mushrooms, which was kind of interesting. And so I'm at the stage right now where after months of gathering qualitative data, looking at how the fruit of the mushrooms have changed, how the mass of the fruiting has been altered by the varying amounts of diesel fuel that I injected. Now I'm starting to formulate this data into a research paper, which has been a great experience to learn how to do that and how to submit that to actually try to get that published. So.
So you had to design all your own equipment then, basically, for.
Yes, I mean, it was hard to regulate temperature and humidity, so I had to create my own mushroom cave, if you will, to basically try to keep those controls of humidity and temperature.
Well, most research is one-off, and then you'll be doing more of that. If you accept that,
Absolutely.
that's great.
What was your impetus? What gave you the thought?
So I read a book over the summer about mycelium and the potential for mushrooms to cure cancer and be big bioremediate agents. And I was really interested in that topic and tried to modify it in a way that I could actually research class.
So is this particular mushroom edible?
It is edible.
And then did that change based on the amount of diesel fuel that it was exposed to?
We
get that question all the time.
Yeah,
That's
no,
like the number one question I get is, can I eat the mushrooms that I'm growing? I say absolutely not, because I don't trust my mushrooms enough to feed you diesel-infested mushrooms. But no, that is a very common question.
I'd be diesel infused.
Infused, that's a better word.
So it serves one purpose, but it can't keep its other purpose yet.
Basically, the mushrooms that are produced serve as almost like
Right?
so
Got it.
it's a collection of diesel fuel potentially that you would be interested in. So.
Okay.
So actually, in the process, this would actually, to the point, it would actually be as if a sponge, because you really wouldn't want to eat them. You'd want to use
So get
them
a diesel
to recover.
So it's a removal, not a
down
recycle.
mushrooms into the ocean and then.
Said another way.
Further testing will have to be done
Right.
to see exactly the composition of those mushrooms produced. So that would be a further extension of the
Yeah.
project.
Did you read that book for pleasure or for the curriculum?
No, I did read that book for pleasure. If I will admit it. Over my summer, yeah.
Right,
Yeah, really,
exactly.
really. Baseball field or something.
On the
That's
beach, it was
very
over summer.
impressive.
But that's the kind of kid that comes into this class.
Absolutely, that's why I love this class. It's a collection of people who are just super passionate about science, so it's a great group of people. Thank you.
And last but not least, Charlotte.
I don't know, I'm gonna be next after that, but my project was working with bioplastic and trying to find a suitable replacement for the current operations that are done to repair the meniscus in the knee. So many of you may not know, but we actually have 4 menisci We have 2 in each knee, one called the medial and one called the lateral. And the medial meniscus gets hurt most often, so that's the one I chose to focus on. They're pretty similar. They're both crescent-shaped pieces of cartilage that have to move with the knee. So both compressive and tensile forces as well as rotational. So I decided to focus on the tensile and compressive forces that the knee undergoes and test my bioplastic based on those conditions. So I couldn't find any definitive numbers on the amount of force that the knee actually undergoes. So I tried to just see if I can make the strongest bit of bioplastic possible. And I did this by using 4 really simple ingredients that you probably have at home. I used cornstarch, water, vinegar, and glycerin, which is just a type of sugar. The glycerin, though, was my key ingredient because it's called a plasticizer, which means that it's what makes things squishy. And obviously the meniscus, when you walk and jump around, like it squishes down with you so that you don't like fall when you jump and walk and run and stuff. So I decided to alter the level and concentration of glycerin in each of my samples. And ultimately, the goal was to have 10 samples, starting with 1 teaspoon to 2 teaspoons of glycerin, because that's the certain procedure that I found to make the type of bioplastic. And then I test it using, there's a picture of a machine right over here. That's the compressor tester. So basically it's a drill press, and I actually worked with Dr. Paul Klosik to kind of make this machine and see how to use it. And I just use a LabQuest machine, which we have a lot at school, as well as force probes to test the compressor strength. And the tensile testing method we're still working on, but the hope is to use the LabQuest machine and a force probe as well. So far, the results have kind of counteracted my hypothesis. I thought the more plasticizer added, the squishier it would be, so the more force it would be able to undergo. However, the samples with the most glycerin right now are actually showing negative results. So I'm gonna widen the range and see if that changes once I widen the range. But overall, the plastic can withhold about like 17 newtons of force, whereas the regular meniscus undergoes about 170 newtons of force. So we have a while to go, but I'm excited to see what the future brings of this one.
Was there someone in your family with a knee injury?
I actually have one, but it turns out it wasn't the meniscus. And then about 2 months after doing this project, my uncle tore his meniscus, and now actually someone in our STEM class tore their meniscus. So there's incentive to
Pretty common.
Yeah.
Very good.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sufficiently stupid.
Any questions about the STEM course before Dr. Grateful?
They mentioned work that you enjoy the folks in the class. How much time do you spend kind of as a group versus individually, or is it primarily individually?
It's group.
Right.
It's group too. We have Google search days
Right.
where we basically in the beginning when we're formulating what we want to do, we spend the class periods researching, learning how to Google, which is a lot harder when you're looking for scientific research.
Right.
And so basically we communicate as a class and bounce ideas off of each other. It's definitely a group thing happening.
So everybody's kind of involved in each other's to some extent,
Very much.
and that makes for a better outcome.
Yeah, I started looking into Alzheimer's and seeing what you're doing with that. And one day I was sitting at some paper and she was researching bioplastic, and I was like, this is awesome, like, yeah, look at this. And now I've spent the entire year researching what she had one Google Day on. So it's really collaborative in that we work together and like learn a lot about all those projects that you saw on the board.
That's great.
How much time do they have, like in the beginning, to research before they have to pick their topic?
We try to do narrowing down in the first, it literally is 2 months sometimes, but we do a lot of skill development in the beginning while they're, so we intersperse experiments and learning to graph data and write things, write procedures, because these kids have never written a procedure. They've done them, but they've never written them. So they write them and the other ones have to do them. So they have a lot of skill development. We intersperse the Google days. The first year, that's what I learned was the most interesting because I thought they're so computer savvy, that shouldn't be an issue, but it's kind of easy to get the first like Wikipedia answer, but they need far more. And in fact, we've had a big collaboration with the librarian at our school to do this research, and she's got a lot of resources so they can actually get journal articles and from all over the state if that's necessary. In fact, we just published an article, the librarian and I just published an article in the Teacher Librarian Journal.
So by the time they're picking a topic, does it usually happen that they're able to continue with that topic? Or is it like they start and then you're like, oops, we just learned something and we have to, because I mean, it's a short school year by the time you actually choose what you're doing, so.
Well, one of the things that helps, I've done science fair, I've supervised science fair projects for 12-ish years now. So I've seen a lot of different projects, and with my own educational background too, I kind of now, watching the other kids do it over the years and I can kind of get a view for it. Our biggest problem is actually getting the ability to test things. They have great ideas, but when you can't do an assay to find out the answer, that's when we get a little stuck. But we have ways, and we're working on it. We have ways. In fact, CREF just provided 3 more ways.
Right.
This week, so.
Question. So a few years ago, this question probably would have been asked more, but there was a lot written about females not being in STEM, and so we happen to have 4 females. What's the male-female ratio in the classes overall?
It's about 60-40 female to male, maybe a little bit higher.
Okay.
I was really actually quite.
There's been a lot talked about in that area. That's what you see if you're just watching STEM from the outside. You see a lot of that. Although I think it's fading as the years go by. But
Kind of building on that though, and my question really relates to not so much of this, but I guess it's really from a curriculum perspective, more to Renee, which is so much of the work that I look at South, which is coming with the robotics and the space program and those things. Those are the guys who are dating these days. No, I'm kidding. That's predominantly male. That's predominantly male. So I wonder if there's some split in terms of.
at least the kids we saw.
Right. But my question really went to, before I sidetracked myself, my question really was going to, do the people involved in that program have a capacity to get academic credit for some of the work they're doing there? That's a co-curricular activity.
In Hutch and Vanessa?
Yeah. Because I'm looking at the level, just because, the level of work in both seem very on par in terms of with the amount of research required, the amount of physical experimentation required, the drawing of conclusions and validating hypothesis.
I've seen on very few occasions, students can take their lab notebooks to a college and maybe present it to an advisor and get a pass on a lab. Not very often, though.
So so I guess my question was a little more, which was, should we be looking to do something where would make that,
There are a couple of independent study courses through Tech Ed, through Mr. Bauer's program, that I don't know if any of those students are in it or not, but I do know that they periodically have 1 or 2 students in each of those independent study courses that could apply to doing that kind of work.
And get credit.
Yes, and get that.
because I just looked at there's a progression there, because we see that program with sophomores, juniors, and seniors, that there's a progression that even if sometimes they're working on a specific segment of that effort, which, there are many disciplines to get a rocket into space, they're working on a specific segment to depth.
And that would be specific to a Tech Ed credit. It would not fall, right now, they wouldn't apply for a science credit.
So if the students that are taking this, is this your science class or is this your second science class? Are you taking?
They only need 3 years of science for high school.
Right, but I'm just curious, are they taking?
When we set it up, the requirement was this was their second science course.
We didn't want them to drop AP Physics to
Right, that's what-
instead, or AP Chem, or.
Right, that's what I'm asking.
Right.
So Piper, you hold up 3 fingers.
2.
Okay.
I'm a fan of science.
So I'm looking at these experiments and I see things like you could use chromatographs and spectral. Do we have that equipment or access to that equipment for the?
there's the door open.
We have some, and Dr. Grateful wrote a grant to get some more.
So we have,
They borrow.
yeah, we do. We borrowed some equipment from Del Valle University. I'm actually working on getting it in Bucks because they just redid their science area. and it's unbelievably gorgeous. I drooled all over that. But we have spectrophotometers, but they're only visible. The grant that I just got from PREF it's a low-level GC and that kind of stuff. But like that's what we're starting to build, because the idea is we don't really need that at every full high school, but
We need access.
access.
Yeah.
So this is the second year, and as the thing we found, or I found this year, is like the projects they picked were an entirely different set. So each year I'm getting more of an idea of what we need and going outside. In fact, while they were presenting me the one grant, I was writing another grant, and they're out there. It's just, if anybody knows of other ones, feel free to send them my way. But yeah, that's what we're trying to do.
I just, a little bit of equipment would go a long way for
Yes.
these kids, and so.
It makes an interesting question, which wasn't, at one time, when Matt, was early on to the technology group, there were a couple of people in industry who would come and sit with Matt and help him get direction. And I wonder if that's really something to take, even if you made this presentation to a collection of local scientific organizations.
Well, KVK and your town just donated $5,000 to STEM.
Correct.
We weren't even asking.
Right.
Gail was asking.
But I was trying to say that to actually harbor or host the notion, because we have scientific organizations, we have members of our community, which also builds that mentorship. Because I think you've got a critical mass now.
Right, I think so too.
How many students? Approximately.
It's 27, I think, between the two schools.
Between two?
Do we have any public comment before Dr. Grateful and these fantastic students depart? Great work.
Thank you
Thank
very
you
much.
so much.
You're welcome to stay and help me books.
Want to pass them around in case anybody wants?
I hope they can understand the best of academic standards. I'll go on as we go.
Scary.
Yes. No, and then he starts bringing up those questions. Oh, yeah, another group of students that were over my head. Let's bring up some more students that I.
At least I'm staying in the high school.
So our second item for this evening is textbook approvals. And this evening we have, I believe, 12 textbooks and 7 novels for your approval for the 17-18 school year. Our textbooks and novels are from elementary English language arts, science, family and consumer science, world language, business with computer and information technology, social studies, and secondary ELA. So we're going to start first with elementary, and each coordinator will come up and present information on the proposed textbook in his or her content area. And then after their brief presentation, since we have a variety, if you want to ask any questions that you might have about that particular textbook before we move on to the next one, rather than wait until the end, then these folks as well, when they're finished, can depart as well. So I'll turn it over to Pat Erickson, who's our elementary ELA coordinator.
Hi. Very nice to see you all tonight. I just have to say that I was so impressed with Piper, and it made my heart so happy to hear her say it all started with the book that she read over the summer. Very, very happy tonight. So the Collections Literacy Program is a program that we have piloted for 2 years for 6th grade in our district. It is a program that includes more rigorous passages for the students to read. It has contemporary literature, and it's a mix also with some of our classics. It has a much larger scope of genre. It's complex, with high interest text with rich themes, distinctive language, stylistic elements. It has high knowledge demands. It includes a Lexile level close reader for differentiation to meet our students' needs. Additionally, it has higher level requirements for responses to reading and also for on-demand reading, which is what our students are asked to do now as part of their state assessments. Some of the technology things that are included with this, It has a link to history, A&E, biography, FYI, which is, it supports research for our students. It's current text research articles that is updated monthly. Channel 1 News puts real-world events in context to inform our students. We have closed reader screencast, which is a model for our students on how they should be speaking with their peers and their teacher about text, having meaningful conversations. We also have the Explorer magazine, which provides multi-genre and level text linked to each collection topic. There's 6 collections in this program for differentiated instruction. We have our Text in Focus, which helps students learn about language, apply language skills, and other types of skills to help them with their reading. We also have leveled up tutorials, which are additional supports for our students online to help them with practice. Like I said, additional support. It has the Write Smart to support authentic writing with lessons, models of actual student writing. They also have an online notebook, student ebook with annotation tool. The teachers have professional development podcasts, which help support the teachers' learning. And we also have part of it, it's also Turnitin on. We have that available at our high school, which helps teachers make determinations about students' writing, if it is authentic student writing or maybe a little bit of borrowing from an author. It's a very complex text. We have piloted this for 2 years across the district in 6 of our classrooms, and we would like to implement this across our schools next year. Do you have any questions for me?
No, they're happy you're here because I keep saying we keep buying equipment and building buildings and we don't buy the 6th grade books that we want.
Yes, yes.
It's great. This is great because it's a middle school program, meant to be middle school. And our kids are very motivated by it. It's high interest, it's very diverse, reaches a variety of levels.
I walked up there because apparently I'm living it. and I have very positive things to say about it. So, it seems to work really well. So
I did want to talk about diversity a little bit because the materials display of diverse populations, diverse occupations for people. When Piper was up there again, I thought about the story about Marie Curie, which is in the book, and how about her life. There are stories, there's articles, there's video clips, there are Native Americans. There is a Native American, the first Native American woman who was a chief of the Cherokee tribe. So it also has a mix of occupations with gender. There's Mexicans, there is Native Americans, like I said, there's Chinese, Asians, Greeks, Mediterraneans. I mean, there's stories about every nationality that I can think of. And I think it's really great for our kids. I spent a year in Jen Todd's class before we started this collection. And I learned a great deal about 6th graders and the need for having more sophisticated materials for our 6th graders because they are a little bit different than our 5th graders and they're not yet in our middle school. So we thought that bringing them materials that were more complex would help them better prepare for the 7th grade. So
help me to understand, because we normally look at this as a selection of a book. This is not a book.
Right.
This is a collection. So there's a wide assembly of things. Well, I see there's a book. That's what I'm trying to figure out.
There's a
What I'm
book,
trying to-
and
collection.
they call it collections because
Okay, so it's
it's
book. With
they're
supporting
grouped
text.
by like themes. So
All right.
there's collections of text inside there, and it's a mix of nonfiction and fiction. So there's articles.
My confusion, because it looked when it says collections and
Yeah.
literacy program, so I was going a different path, thinking it was a collections, which then also has some element of selection of curation,
Right.
meaning like libraries,
Right.
collection that children will be choosing from within the collection, and they were all.
It's still a textbook. It's an
It's still a
anthology,
textbook.
but it has other components. There's so much online.
So let me ask the questions, which I have a whole different line of questions because it's a collection. So how many students are going to be served by this purchase?
all of our 6th graders.
So it's about 900,
I think that is our number.
and it's replacing a text there
Yes,
in place from how many years old is that?
5 years. This is our 5th year in our program.
Of the one that's being
Yes.
replaced.
Yes, for 6th graders.
And this book, then, are you doing, is this all, are there classroom sets? I'm just trying to understand how we're doing this now. Because when I first got on the board, a few weeks ago, we were all worried about, wait, this is not a regularly hefty book.
No.
Um,
And everything's available online, so they wouldn't even have to carry that home.
So are we buying mostly, are we doing a lot of classroom sets
Yes,
supported?
they would have the paper and also access on technology in the classroom, either the labs or the Chromebooks or laptops.
And they can access at home too.
Yeah.
Yes, and in addition to that, the questions that go along with the textbook, the students can actually answer online and the teachers can read online.
And you're
And
coming
that's
to
where
that.
we're getting, and that's a wonderful thing for us because we can,
And it's
it's
amazing
their
for them.
online
And-
notebook.
And part of my business, unrelated, is actually how do patients in a clinical trial make diaries? And they used to do them on paper, now we do them electronically. So we not only get what they enter, we get the metadata behind it. So I guess my question as a follow-on is, do you have, when I was in 6th grade, if you weren't doing the reading assignments, the only one who knew was the teacher when you screwed up the test. So my question really goes to, do we have metadata? You want to start going? Do we have metadata so that you know who's hitting the things, who's not doing the assignments, so that you're coaching, because that's in my business, one of the things we try and do is get to the subjects who aren't doing the work, to remind them to do the work that we need. Do we have the same capability with the metadata you spin up from this?
Absolutely, definitely. We can see everything that they do in that electronic version of the book and all that.
Okay,
We
so
can get reports, we can do.
Again, drawing parallels to my business, it's great that we have them, but I think and I hope we're doing that, and that's part of what this learning communities, professional learning communities, I hope is supporting, is we need to think new ways of having our teachers know how to use those tools. Because otherwise, all we've done is we've given them an electronic version of paper. When you speak of the many resources, that's one thing, but teaching our people how to manage with those is key. So that's gotta be your space, I guess that's.
And students can make annotations in their book online. Teachers can see their annotations. They can comment back to the students so that the students can see a specific point they're trying to make.
And are we as the employers of those teachers, keeping up with that, making sure they're familiar with it and trying to stay on top of that they're using the tools?
Yes, we've had quite a few workshops this year. We meet regularly. We've brought in representatives. We've gone over the technology as it has changed from one year to another. The one thing about this program is it's constantly adding things.
Okay.
And we have them in so they can present to us the new things that are being added. Some of the things that they've been able to work with this year, they didn't even have them last
So
year.
you've piloted now this year before you get the stuff in. Will this stuff be in for the fall? If you
Yes.
buy it? So you're proselytizing among the people who haven't worked in this program before then?
Yes, we talked to them about it. We have made arrangements to bring them in over the summer,
Sure.
have their materials ready for them so that they can go online, they can access the online tools, they can have their actual textbooks to prepare themselves for the fall.
Is this a multi-year license?
I believe it's, hang on. I'm pretty sure it was 6 years.
I would imagine you're selling.
Yeah, it's 6 years, 6 years it says.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And you talked about bringing new skills to use this technology to our existing staff. Are the new teachers coming out of college already familiar with this, and this is how they're being taught for the
Yeah,
most
some of
part?
them are, like when we went to school, of course, there was no computer,
Right.
so.
So I'd be
Still on a
interested.
stone, right, they have, they're very much more adept at, learning the technology and, using it in the classroom.
So I'd be interested in knowing kind of for everybody, as new teachers are coming into our system, what is kind of getting their attention? Oh my God, we're in the Stone Age. And then where can we make an impact there? Like, it sounds like we're doing.
This is great because, I mean, if you don't have the skills, you do have the textbooks and the pieces there, and you could do it more kind of traditional style, but there is so much on their website, online component, and we keep discovering more and more, and we love it. Like, I've never had to really
Right.
I could get away without looking outside at anything else and just using everything they have because it's more than I could ever even use. So it's amazing the kids are motivated and love it too, and they really are learning their text.
I just want to make sure we're maximizing what our teachers are ready to do, because if we bring them in and we don't have the tools here or the right resources for them to use, then the kids are missing out. And Wendy's point, we do spend a lot of time lately talking about buildings and buses, which is important, but we need to make sure that you guys collectively are bringing things like this to our attention, because this seems like we're doing something significant.
A lot of our applicants interview us about that, asking questions about what technology is available,
And we don't want to lose them.
how our classroom
Right.
is outfitted. I mean, they're interested in knowing what we have for them to use, because that's what they've learned coming out of,
Right.
college at this point.
Do we lose on that? Do we?
No, in fact, most of them are pretty comfortable when we tell them what we have in our classrooms, because they've student taught in other places where that's not as accessible.
I don't think we should lose sight of the fact and all the technology component of this and how long overdue this curriculum is in terms of differentiating our sixth grade kids from their K through 5 counterparts and where they're going. I would imagine that your middle school teachers are very excited as well to be receiving kids after a program like this.
So 242 kids went through this program this year, 200 last year. Like I said, we would like to implement it across the board. One important thing that I did mention is the podcast for the teachers, which helps keep them up to date, helps they can go in and look about something that they're wanting to know about the program. It helps bring them more knowledge about the technology piece, but also the community that we have with our teachers. We met like about every 6 weeks, which I would continue with, new teachers being brought on. And we have these 6 incredible teachers who really know a great deal about the program, would be willing to share with the other teachers, more as like a train-the-trainer type of thing. And to be available to them to answer any questions from our other teachers.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions?
Just in the Facebook, there are cross-curricular connections, like for example, connections to say sciences, and there's a theme called animal intelligence.
Yes.
I see a lot of natural cross-curricular
We're just
connections.
talking about social studies.
Yeah, not just science, because we did see some natural science, because through the disaster unit and the animal intelligence unit, there's a ton of science we can incorporate in. And the extra components online, there's like a magazine, there's this FYI, there's a lot of parts there that can add additional cross-curricular connections. But social studies too, we study ancient civilizations in 6th grade, and a lot of the stories have ties that way as well, cultural ties, which is what we're doing.
Yes, and going back to the FYI connection, which is the online component as well, it's all current events. It's things that are relevant and it's constantly changing. And it's from the science world with the social studies connection, so both are found there as well.
It's aligned to the PA core standards, but it also has a 50-50 mix of fiction and nonfiction.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's great.
Thank
Gracias and roses before you.
I don't know, how do we do?
I would imagine there's no objection to that. Does anybody have any objection? I know that they're leaving, so we want to leave the room knowing they got what they came for. Does anybody, actually your question simply is to the board. Would anybody have a problem approving this? You can leave it at
Yes,
that.
we could certainly do that, and I also presume if anybody had any objections, any real objections, we would certainly know about it.
Yeah.
So does anyone have any objections to approving this text?
Nope.
Nope. Excellent.
Thank you, ladies, well done.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks. So we are now moving on to science and with Renee Devlin, and you'll see the first book is actually linked to the experimental research in STEM.
I don't know why you need books, your students can probably write them.
I think they might have done a better job presenting than I would.
Therese Grateful, who you just met, found a book on the NSTA website, and she asked if we could buy them. So I said, we have to pilot them in through the procedure.
Yeah, now we know why they had that presentation.
For the pilot, they had 31 books, now they're going to buy 30.
And Jenny Fetter was a little nervous starting to teach the class without a book. So he was very much on board. She has done all her homework in other districts, and she visited other schools and things online and colleges. So this is the one that Therese suggested and Jerry agreed with. North and South both had 15 copies for their class to use. It's a reference book. She doesn't really, do lessons out of it. There's no online component. It's really just a reference. It can be used from someone who's very basic, starting a research project, to a very in-depth one. The readability is 10th to 11th grade, which I think is good because it's not intimidating. It's aligned to the Pennsylvania PA Academic Science and Technology Standards, and it really takes them through research, chi-square, graphs, analysis, and how the whole process works.
Was it a workbook? Like you
They
write in it?
don't write in it, so we're gonna
Okay.
use them year after year.
So it's just
I looked at it, I briefly looked at it.
She doesn't write, they don't
That's not
write
what
in
she's using it
She's
for.
not using it to have them write in it.
So it's just
Because
a
they're
resource,
keeping their
15,
lab, right.
15 in each school.
They're not taking them home, they're keeping them in class, they're using them as a reference. It's not guiding everything. When they need to look things up, she might start off with that.
Now, would this be something that, it seems more universal than just that, would this be something that would sit in the library too, if somebody not in that class wants to?
Well, we usually put every book we have in the library for when kids go to after school hours. So we usually try to put at least 1 or 2 copies in.
Oh, is that customary for every textbook in every discipline?
Yes. If we have extra, we always make sure we do.
So the old excuse about lost my book.
Yeah. Dog ate my book.
Any other questions? Any objections?
She's got 3 books.
Yes.
I'm going one by one.
Okay, all right.
Jerry stepped out of the room, there's 2 more to come.
That's how come it got done so fast, huh? Is that what your point was?
It is.
It is something like that.
I'll keep going.
8th grade honors reached a wider range of teachers from all 3 middle schools. So we met with a bunch of different reps 2 years ago in the summer, and they all filled out a textbook evaluation sheet, and they all 100% agreed to pilot this book. So 2 years ago, we had, let me see if I get this right, Newtown Middle School, Jim Fox piloted, and Dan Ambuster and Rich Farrell. And then there were some budget cuts last year, and we didn't cut the book. We spoke to the rep, and he said we could keep the pilot for another year and extend it. So then this year, Holland Middle, Dave Perry piloted, and Dan Ambuster kept it as well. Jim Fox was allowed to keep his online licenses, so, and we were allowed to keep the pilot books. It also had a new edition. It really wasn't in print, ready for academic standards, so it was kind of a win-win for both because we really didn't have it physically to show you. We didn't want to buy the 2012, that's a 2017 book, and it's replacing the 2003.
That one, or science?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. What I like, and what the teachers like most about the book is you can, sorry, that was heavy. That was a heavy one. But since we're allowed to keep the pilot books, the students can keep theirs at home. We were able to get the online license extended from 6 years to 7 years. We're allowed to keep 95 pilot books. And what I like the most, and what teachers tell me is a great feature, is they can select the readability. Even though it's a 9th grade reading level for honors, that works out fine. But they can set the readability for on level, above, or below for activities.
For an individual student?
Yes.
That's
They
fabulous.
can give them a specific, well, of the 3 choices.
Right, but.
Yes. We never had that option before. And our old book doesn't have online.
That's outrageously good, I think.
I think the thing that's changing, which I think becomes important for us to realize, is heretofore when we bought a book, the book was the book, and it was yours. We had books, good or bad. We had some books for 12 years. This is locking us in very much into a 7-year cycle. It's really.
Because they're online, you mean for that many years?
Because we're going to integrate so much of that online aspect of the work that you're really going to lock in. And just as, there's no way around it, I just think the board needs to be informed because I think that becomes one of those things that on a rotational basis, we're committing, in essence, if we talk about long-term contracts and people, when we talk, we come to making the budget and we say, well, these things are committed, our labor contracts are committed, our bus contracts are committed, our food service is committed. We're entering more and more of that. There's no way around it. I just think we need to acknowledge that we're getting into that the cycles are being set for us, which means that in years to come, we've set the budget already for what will be in 7 years.
We can always do sooner.
Yes, you
So
you
it's
could.
almost like, is Earth Science in the next 7 years gonna change, or the way you learn Earth Science, or something about it gonna change that you could do it sooner, but you'd have to do it in 7 years. You'd have to do something.
Well,
You have to at least extend your
Yes, you
license.
can extend your license as well. And
But that's still what he's saying, there's the
Well,
financial, there's
so
there's
my-
gonna be another cost.
My question then, it's an excellent point, my question then is, this includes a 7-year online access. As we purchase it, do they include options at a pre-stated price? Not that we would buy them, because this is working out at 7 years.
Does your company guarantee a price 7 years out? Like
I
that?
guarantee offering it 7 years out, and I
At a
offer
price?
it with a certain rise on a per annual fee, not to exceed certain commission, certain cost of living or percentage increase. So this is working out to, in essence, $7,000 a year. So my question would be, because in the 8th year, if we wanted to defer buying it another year, could we buy the 8th year for $8,000? But we don't have that. So I think that is maybe not in this go round, because we haven't negotiated
Future
that.
thinking.
But we have to think about that says when we get into these contracts, which are less and less carbon-based and more electronic-based, we need to think about if we needed to push. Renee, you were exactly right. We deferred buying for a year. That may happen again in some future budget cycle. So we need to think about as we buy, including the option to buy or extend a year or two.
And Renee, I think you said this came with a 6-year license.
Yes.
And you got them to extend it to 7-year at no additional.
That's 7 years
No,
forward.
I told them Pearson did it for me last year. so
Right.
they have
So I mean, you're getting 7 years for the price of
Yes,
6.
yes.
Well, but I hear you.
Yeah.
But
Agreed.
Like Cengage would not extend their online license for us for Honors Bio, they were firm, but Pearson and McGraw-Hill did.
And if I may, the other thing that I heard when we were discussing the English textbook was that the online content gets refreshed. So that's.
in that particular collection, yes. I
Yes,
wouldn't
and
know that that's the case
It is, it's
necessarily.
the case for current events and careers. They have a current event component to their online and careers, and that does get updated.
Question, Mr. Desko, what's kind of the average per year? What are we looking at this year in terms of total textbook costs?
Our total this year is a little over 332,000.
Okay, and is that kind of average year to year? Do we see spikes off of that in your?
We did not spend that much.
we've suppressed it.
That's the highest.
We've suppressed
So
it.
the reason I'm asking that question is to Jerry's piece about future spending. I think one thing that we've gotten really good at in the last year and a half is taking a look at a longer term financial model and maybe, textbooks and or academic investments like this might be a line item to carve out, just so we can help understand what those will be to make sure that we don't shortchange them or suppress them.
That's an excellent point, because there are many things that never even got to us. Many
That's
in budgetary
where I
crisis
was-
that they pulled back and did not even put themselves in this position to come and defend that. So
That's where I was going.
I
Don't interpret anything I'm saying to be oppositional to it. It's just, how do we?
I'm not.
I was about to
She
say-
knows you well.
I think the other piece to your point, Andy, is especially when you look at the elementary level. Now, you saw a presentation for a 6th grade language arts program. And it was just 6th grade. So when you're looking at the elementary level, typically when you do an elementary purchase, it is K through 6 or chunks of grades. Sometimes you want to implement in primary grades first and then intermediate grades second, and you have a plan for that. But that is typically a much more sizable expense for a program, especially in core areas like language arts and math, and science and social studies would have fewer ancillary items and things like a language arts program would. And the other thing that we need to keep in mind is at the secondary level, like this 8th grade science textbook is really only going to impact the 8th grade science teachers and not any of the other content teachers. But at the elementary level, if you're adopting a larger program, like a math program, you want to be careful about how much you're asking teachers to try to take on with different programs. So those are all factors that when you're looking at kind of a line item for curriculum budget or for textbooks, thinking about how some years that might spike more than others because we're going to adopt a core math program next year, and that's going to cost us a lot more money for 7 grades as opposed to 1 grade of a science textbook.
I would love to see us get a longer term view of that because, we have a $3 million kind of line item for summer capital projects that runs through that can kind of do this over time. I'd love to see something on an academic.
Or we have 17.5 that pays debt for buildings.
But that's the point about, letting us
And then we cut
make
books
the
down to
hard choices is
$100,000.
let's prioritize, the academic piece in there so that, we get to see it and
Yeah,
that,
absolutely.
you're not making any assumptions about what we may or may not do. And then again, that piece about being able to be planful and look at it over time makes it easier to.
We can
Right.
definitely
You
do
could
that.
say we've committed to $300,000 a year.
That's,
Yeah.
which we wound up doing with computers when we first got here.
Yeah.
Because we were having HQ computers, we had a releasing
Yeah.
program.
That's
We
right.
set a budget for each year.
It's a great idea.
My last book.
Are we, do you wanna-
Any other questions?
Does anybody have any other questions or objections?
Too heavy.
The last
Too
book.
heavy.
We're gonna get a gym book for
This book is
the weight
called
room for kids.
Cells Heredity and Classification, and it's for all of 6th grade. We were hoping to buy class sets for 6th grade science teachers. A few years ago, we purchased a 7th grade honors book and a 7th grade academic book. And that book had a component called Biomes. 6th grade has this book called Biomes. It isn't a real book, which we've been trying to replace forever. Years ago, 7th grade was life science, and it was changed to environmental science. So the coordinator at the time took the chapter out before they got rid of the 7th grade books and bound these for a 6th grade unit, so they're really not replaceable. So I've been looking, and now that we've put the 6th and 7th grade teachers together last summer, and the 7th grade teachers agreed they don't need a new book, it's already in their book, they're gonna trim some things in the first marking period and teach biomes to all of 7th grade. So 6th grade will be able to teach cells heredity and classification, which has been shown on the 4th grade PSSA and the 8th grade PSSA. So we're not going to do the whole book, we're going to do, what chapters are we're skipping 2 chapters in the book, I think 4 and 6. And we're addressing state standards that we have been missing on simple Mendelian genetics and offspring, because there have been Punnett squares on the PSSA. So I was trying to squeeze it in, and we couldn't. This is just.
You don't want to find?
And this is a good, I brought you a good one.
Embarrassing. Welcome to
Why
Castle
only-
Rock.
why only-
Pay your property taxes.
Why-
There you go.
Really? A comic book. Why only 400 copies? You have
We
about,
have,
you have about 1,000, every year you guys are about 1,000 students, so
well,
let's
we
say it goes
piloted the
down.
books this year.
How
So,
many do you
let me think.
Well,
We
But
had
some
1,
6th
2,
grade
3, 4.
rotates
We have
Yeah.
five teachers are piloting, and some 2 shared, because
And
they
there's some
piloted
6th grades that
different.
rotate. I don't know if they
Some
look
do,
at that.
yes.
Some of
Kelly
the elementary
Grimes
schools.
has like maybe 25 books, because in Newtown, she just teaches science. So she piloted all year in
Churchville used
Newtown.
to do that. They do it
Churchville
anymore.
has 2 teachers and they're sharing. And Maureen Welsh shared with Holland, Amy Smith, who just
So
left.
you, so
So they were
you
sharing.
ladder your time, you order the segments differently in the
Yes,
school,
and the
different schools.
problem, I suggest the units in 6th grade are variables, levers and pulleys, Earth, Moon, and Sun, and hopefully this one will replace biomes. And I always suggest Earth, Moon, and Sun, and I will suggest for this, they could do it in the 3rd or 4th marking period, because those are the harder units. And we want to start off everybody hopefully with variables.
But they're not building upon one another. You
No,
could do
and they
this
can
unit
share.
without having done levers and mechanical devices.
Yes, they're not. And also, we're hoping to buy the books, and we piloted through Follett, so they're a lot cheaper than going through the publisher.
Renee, what's the reading level on this book?
The reading level, I'm glad you asked, is 7th grade. It's a seventh, I think, yeah, it's a 7th grade readability. Let me double check.
But that's because of some of the word choices too. That
And it's
pushes
just
us up.
what the reading specialist said, they're talking about homozygous, heterozygous. So it's based on syllables, and since it will be a reference reinforced by the instruction of the teacher. So they think if we use it at the end of the year, third or fourth marking period, it'll be appropriate for all of 6th grade.
And it's 7th grade.
Any other questions or objections?
It's gonna be a whole new 6th grade next year.
Yes.
New science, new English.
Thank you.
And you're glad to get it.
Maybe I can send my kid back instead of anything to avoid high school.
You can adopt another one.
Great. Thank you, Renee. So up next, we have Family and Consumer Science, Debbie Mack.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
I'm Debbie Mackey. And we are requesting a new textbook, parents and their children, for our child development parenting class, not to be confused with child development nursery school. Child development parenting is an alternate day elective. The existing text that we have is very old. The new text is aligned to our national standards. And we're requesting a set of 30 for each high school to use in our child development parenting classes. The textbook is going to be used as a resource in the classroom, along with a lot of hands-on activities that we do as an arts elective. So it'll be used to teach about families, decisions to parent, pregnancy, genetics and birth defects, the ages and stages of child development, social, emotional, physical, and intellectual development, fetal alcohol syndrome, shaken baby syndrome, and many other topics in parenting that will increase the students' knowledge about, what it's all about. And before they make the fateful decision to parent, which hopefully will be a long way down the road. So at the end of every chapter, it has activities, suggested activities for critical thinking, developing Common Core, real and math were appropriate for the chapter, and also career readiness. I've marked a few pages there as you pass around and go through. I feel that it's a text that reflects diversity and ethnicities, that it lacks gender bias, lots of pictures of happy families, children of all different ethnicities and things, and it's badly needed to replace a dated textbook that we currently use as a resource.
And you said it does address mental health issues?
It addresses birth defects.
Okay.
How many students are enrolled?
How many students? Currently, there are 20 at North and I believe 23 at South, but we often get requests for textbooks for kids that are homebound and things like that too. So that's where we're requesting 30 for each school.
Any questions? Any objections?
One more thing. I'm sorry, I didn't get to the money part.
It's up on the screen, now.
Yes, okay. For that price, included in that price, that's just the textbooks and the shipping, but the Goodhart Wilcox is also giving us 2 free teacher editions and a reference CD. And the reference CD contains lesson plans, worksheets, tests, the whole 9 yards, even though there isn't a digital component. We feel comfortable with that. We also have access to a class set of iPads, and we like to design a lot of our own materials based on our students' needs and interests too. So,
Is there an online component to this other than the CD?
there is, but we're not, because of the number of students enrolled And because of the variability, you never know from one year to the next how many kids are going to be in the course, whether the course is even going to run. I do not think that the online component, plus we do a lot of hands-on learning, but I don't think for what you're getting that it's a good deal, so to speak. So that's why we're not requesting.
Well, and just because you said it, that, I want to reflect on it for a moment, which is, you don't think it's a good deal, and we're not doing it, which is to say, online is not a panacea. So I appreciate that. That's making, that's a discerning decision, and I think that's important to reflect when we do
Because
have
again,
staff that does it.
yeah, again, we do have the iPads and we can do Google Classroom, as a learning platform if and when, if we want to occasionally use it, but we don't want to be, we only see the kids every other day and we don't want to have them,
I do,
glued to the computers. We'd rather take them into the foods lab and teach them about nutrition and how to make a healthy meal for a pregnant woman, or, we make baby food, healthy snacks for toddlers, that type of thing. So,
do you teach at all about mental health in babies or young children, depression, bipolar, any of the mental health issues?
We have a limited time to deliver our curriculum, and so the closest we get to something like that is talking about is when we do our unit of birth defects. So.
I'd love to see that involved in the curriculum. I think it's something in this country that we need to talk about, not like it's a big secret, frankly. If we're talking about birth defects and the kids got bipolar, we should talk about it. Kids are talking about it.
Well,
So,
and that
I'd
might
love
be
to see
something that's
mental
part of
health.
our psychology courses. So not necessarily in family and consumer science, but in our psych courses where they'll talk.
Right, where
about-
somebody's looking for information on that. I'd like it to be, and you're gonna have baby, they could have birth defects, they could have mental health issues. Here's the information equally spread.
Thank you.
It's just a little beef that I'm only one person. I don't wanna rewrite your curriculum, I'm not a teacher. I
That's
just
fine.
have a,
it's
we've had a lot of trauma in
It's
this
a welcome
country.
and valuable suggestion, and we've
Particularly for the kids who might take this class, I think it's another added dimension that they should know that is out there.
So I just, the question is probably more about the course than it is around the book. So if there's not a short answer, don't worry about it. I can find out later. But the makeup of kids who take this class, is it because they're truly interested in family and parenting, or is it because they're interested in potentially careers that might feel, this would be a good subject matter, teachers, nurses, healthcare?
Both. It's a real stretch. Like I have an 11th grader that's thinking about going into medicine. And on the other end of the spectrum, I have some silly freshmen that took it because they thought it would be fun.
Right.
So we teach a mixed bag, we really do. That's why I say we need to sort of adjust ourselves and be quick on our feet to meet the needs of all of our students.
Do they all like children? That when my
Oh, yes.
daughter was looking at it, the common thread of the kids in the class is they're kids who like little kids.
They
Like
do.
I don't know that that's factually
Is
true.
there a
That's-
gender predominance in the class?
Yes, very, very much so. We'd like to get some gentlemen into the class, but they don't seem to be elected yet. So maybe that's something that we need to think about too.
It's hard to compete with wood tech.
Yeah.
Well,
They'd
I want to be
rather
very,
be down there-
wait,
They'd rather be down there using the saws.
Well, I want to be clear too, we talked about STEM, we wanted to get women in STEM. People make choices, so that's choice, everything is not for everybody. So people make choices whichever way they want to go.
It is good.
Okay.
Great. Thank you very much. Any objections?
It's a question. The textbook or like the course advocates a certain style of parenting?
I'm sorry.
Does the course or the textbook advocate a certain style of parenting?
Because that would be bias. It just talks about families in general and the difficulties families have. It might say something like, parenting is more challenging for if you were in a single parent situation, things like that. But things that are pretty much hard and fast. It does not make recommendations or value judgments.
I'm just wondering about that. These are, think about like the different like parenting styles and yeah.
Maybe I'm not understanding your
No,
question.
that's yes.
All right, thank you. All right, world language, and we have French.
Hi, good evening. This is our book, D'accord 3. I think you may all remember that you approved this. This is our level 3 of the book. You approved this for level 1. We've used it for level 1. We're doing level 2 right now. And now we are hoping that the 3rd level gets approved for next year. We're looking at ordering 80 copies at each school. It has a 6-year online resources in the contract, which is standard with this company that we use. It's Vista Higher Learning. We use them in our AP classes, our level 4 classes, and now French is adopting them in level 1, 2, and 3. We're very impressed with the publisher. We like what they offer, and they teach more of a lot more culture than some other publishers do, which is the main theme in the AP class. So it kind of goes backwards from your AP themes. The online resources, we have class sets in each building, which works out well because students have access to a super site, which provides the book online, and they can get online. There's plenty of online resources. They can watch the short films that we might watch in class, interactive activities. Teachers can assign homework online and see who does it, who doesn't. Students can, they can ask for help when they're doing their homework, and a teacher can see 3 students have requested help, etc. You can do it long-term, short-term. I teach out of the book, the same style of book for AP Spanish, and so we really find that the online resources are very, very useful. They can submit an entire paragraph, or they can just do a comprehension check of something that they've read. So it's very diverse. It covers the French speakers in France, of course, and then Quebec. They talk about Louisiana and all of the regions in Africa where they speak French. So you're going to look in the book and you're going to see people of all different colors. And the French teachers are very, very pleased with it so far. So we'd like to continue on with the 3rd year.
Should we be expecting to quote TACT next year?
No, we go into face à face, which is spelled face à face. I finally got the pronunciation right. I'm a Spanish teacher. They didn't know this better. I said, how many face-to-faces do we need? It's face à face. So this is doctor. So I got that right. No, when we go into level 4s, we usually go a little bit more, give the kids a little bit more depth with the different type of textbook. These textbooks for level 1, 2, and 3 are pretty much follow the same format. There's a theme, there's vocabulary, there's a couple grammar points, there's culture points, and then they start the next chapter. So the kids are used to it.
So if we buy these, will the kids who get these have had 1 and 2?
Oh, yes. We're using 2 now. We're using 2 now, and then we'll have 3.
And then 80 bundles, is each high school similar to what we have of 2?
Yes, we have 85 of 2. So usually some kids will drop.
And the book we're replacing is how old?
Oh, it's, I'm going to say 10 or 11 years old.
They say French is
I was gonna
timeless.
older than you've been on the board, but that would be true.
When I took French, it was the language phrase was "Je suis Vietnamien," so I am Vietnamese. So it tells you how old my book was when I was taking French.
But were there computers back then?
Yeah, there were a whole bunch of people sitting in a room with adding machines. Those were the computers.
Any other questions?
Any objections?
All good.
Merci.
Merci beaucoup.
I love the term super site. I wrote that down.
Oh, boy.
All right. Next is
My launch.
accounting.
Wait. She's not asking for the book. She's asking for the book.
Yeah, exactly. Keep it that way, and then you'll be really thrilled with everything else.
No.
Just know, Andy.
Do you know how to use it?
That's the very defensive.
Who taught you, Barry? She's a technologist.
He does. So many of you will remember about 5 years ago, we decided to, we just had to completely revamp the business information and computer science for it because it was just becoming a little bit dated. So we went through, we really ripped apart all of the courses and it's worked. I mean, people have been really excited. Students have been excited about it. Enrollment's increased. So this is our very last kind of, our last change throughout it. So it's the accounting. So we had been hoping, we kind of held off on this a little bit, but just in case any of you remember, a few years ago, we did get the approval for the AP accounting, which we were really excited about. It was actually more like 4 years ago, but the College Board never approved it. So we're still moving forward with that, but just not with the AP, instead with the honors. So we held off on our accelerated accounting book because we really wanted to make sure that we kept it in conjunction with what we're going to be doing with the honors accounting. So we probably used a book a little bit longer than we needed to, or we should have for accounting. So especially just because the examples in the books that we currently have are so old. I mean, when you're looking, at the changes in accounting technology over the past 10 years, really been great. So, I thought that was going up there. So, we chose this book, which is a great book, and it's very visual, it's very step-by-step. So this is for our accelerated accounting, our accounting group, and it also comes with working papers as well, which is really important for the students. And they do have access to online materials as well, and so do the teachers. So that's kind of nice. There's just a lot of information that they have online, so we can print things as well if we needed to offline. So that
Will they keep it up to date?
Yes.
Is tax accounting in here?
Yes.
So if tax law changes?
Oh, then the online part, that's actually a really good question. I mean, the textbook wouldn't change,
This
but
is the only
online-
subject I know anything about, so.
That's a really good question. I should just see how.
You should
how
ask about the
often,
tax.
The online materials are updated for the teachers.
A lot of accounting
Mhm.
basics are accounting basics, but tax
Good
code
question. That's a
is.
good question.
Is the workbook is not to be written, that's,
Yes. Mhm.
so you'll have to buy new workbooks each year.
Yeah, and that's what we do now, because they really need, to simulate.
I'm surprised though, they don't just use Excel and some
We
of
do
the
that
accounting
too,
programs.
but
The paper still is what they.
the teachers fill out the paper
Picture of
aspect
a
of it.
check.
But most kids will go, what's that?
Yeah.
You take a
exactly.
picture of it and it appears in your bank. It's like magic.
Yeah, right? Exactly, so they'll be doing both, so it's a combination, all the simulations and so forth are online as well. So when you purchase the workbook, you have the access to the online as well.
Yeah,
So
the tax thing is the only thing I would think of.
I guess my question is, no, you didn't say when you're buying it, but, so people who are listing this online, each of these books is an inch and a half thick, it's an inch and a half thick, so there's a textbook and a workbook. So I guess my question is, how far is it, how much of the book, what percentage of this book do they actually, you can't just buy the first 4 chapters, but how much of this book do they actually use? It's a huge book.
They actually get through most of the book, but what it is it's piecemeal throughout, so we don't go chapter by chapter. We actually, there are some chapters even, and with it, for the most part, we go through as the chapters, but there are in a couple instances that we jump ahead and then go back, and they give you a lot of different examples that you can choose from, different studies that you can use in simulation, so we don't do each one of those. So which is kind of nice, so there's a lot of variety in there as well, and then way they can differentiate it depending on their class as well.
And there's the book available online as well?
Not the book, but there are resources in addition to it, supplemental materials online.
I'm also at the point where I'm asking, can we buy the online, not for this one, can we buy the online, not buy the paper anymore?
Well, and I'll address that too when we get to the Microsoft Office, remind me, because I found out some interesting things when I was researching this book as well. So that's the first part for that, and then here are the costs for that, for this particular book.
Mr. Reinhardt signed off on these?
Yeah, he's really
It's per
excited.
school, it's per school.
Is that all
He's
the time?
really
It's
excited.
about 25 students per accounting in each school?
Well, yes, well, what we do is we bus the students from south to north,
Okay.
because
Just
north
one
has
bus.
much bigger. So we just keep them in the classroom, so that way we can have a couple classes running and we just keep the resources right there and within the classroom.
Well, you have it written here per school, but that's not true then.
I just used a template for.
That's fine, but so we're not really looking at 8,000, which would be twice what you're
Right.
asking for. In total, you're only asking for 25 and 25.
I'm only asking for $4,100.
Yeah.
It's a bargain.
Exactly.
I did that without taking account of the.
But if you took accounting, I'm
This is why she
imagine the
separated us.
possibilities. I know, Kyle.
He was originally down there.
I couldn't see the
Was?
board. I had to move up, teacher.
So then that would be the accelerated. So then for the honors accounting, this is a college level course. This will be more aligned to the college accounting. And what's really exciting, thank you, Barry. I guess I don't know how to use it overall. So this will be more aligned to colleges. And actually, it's the same book that's used in many of the colleges around here, which is kind of exciting to see. That we'll be doing things very similar to what they're doing, right here within the college. Like even like Gwen Mercy.
Should buy it from the students after they take the class. When the other kids are always selling their textbooks, there's Calter Rock standing. I like it.
Yeah, really. We can get a little discount there. So with this one, with the honors accounting, so this is not an introductory class. They're going to be going a lot more into tax in this particular one, and more into the managerial topics as well, both financial and managerial as well with this book. So there are real world work situations within that book, and you'll find it's very diverse. There's a lot of different samples. It's definitely at a higher level. So this is definitely meant for the student that is looking to pursue accounting in college, which is one of the #1 majors in college.
This has the same prerequisites as the other course.
What'd you say?
This has the same prerequisite as the other course, it's just the honors level.
Are we gonna get online stuff?
Yes, and there's online supplemental materials with that as well, and also teacher materials, same as with the other accounting too. So I'll have to ask about the tax.
But there's no workbook.
There's no workbook with that one because there's more information online that they'll be able to use.
Because really, if we're not doing the whole online thing, and I'd be fine if they said if there's any significant tax code changes, they give us a supplement or something, even if it's paid for it,
Right,
right?
exactly. So this one comes at
Much more expensive.
It's an expensive book. And we did look even like with the, there was a number of different books that we looked at, and they all were right around the college level book, were all around this. I know I was a little bit surprised by the price too, but that's, I guess the going rate.
You're only somewhat kidding.
No, I'm saying, because if colleges want it, then they can charge more.
So Charlotte, before you move on to those, just with these, the accounting books, any objections to these books?
I would like to know the answer, the follow-up. I mean, I would
About the
approve buying
tax
them
code?
either way, but if, in 7 years' time, there's gonna be some kind of change.
Sure.
7 years, 7 months, 7 weeks.
Could be changes, then changes back again, who knows?
Yeah, right.
Right? And then our Microsoft Office, which, is one of my favorite courses. This particular course, the reason why we're updating the textbooks is just because our we upgraded Office in the district. So we upgraded it, Matt, when, last summer? Last summer, but I didn't budget for textbooks, so we waited. So we kept the old version in this year. So they're gonna upload it this summer so that we'll be up and running with what the rest of the district has in our courses. So that's the reason for both the introductory book and the intermediate, and they're very similar to what we already have. It's the same publisher, Shelley Cashman. Again, the textbooks are fantastic. So, and what was very interesting is what we thought about doing is, and I talked to Matt about it, I thought, you know what, maybe we'll do dual monitors, and we'll just buy the textbook online, and then we'll save all this money. And then what we came to find out is that actually we would be spending so much more money because the online version is the same as this, but when you buy this, you get the online version for free. But then in addition to that, we would have to not only buy the dual monitor, but then you have to buy the attachment to go with it. And then at South, there isn't enough room right there to add the dual, so then we'd have to be looking at additional furniture. So what we were thinking, computer course, like let's just go completely paperless. But we realized that it was actually difficult to do that. So, and it was going to cost us a lot more money. So that is.
Get the 4K monitors.
And this is the class where after they're done, they get a certification that gets them college credits?
Yes. So they can take the Microsoft Office user exam. If they pass all 3, depending on the college they go to, they can get 3 college credits for it. And plus it looks great on college, at your college application, and also for a job experience as well. So we have a lot of students that do that. And if you, for some reason, you don't pass it the first time, you do get a chance to take it the second time. So that's kind of
And
exciting.
they pay for taking that, they pay for taking the test.
They take it for, yes, they pay for taking it both times, but we subsidize it through FBLA. So they don't pay nearly what they would pay if they were at a college.
FBLA.
Mm-hmm. Business Leaders of America.
Thank you, because Family Medical Leave Act almost fit, but it didn't quite
Well,
make
it's very-
sense.
Very close. But we raise a lot of money in FBLA because we have one of the largest clubs in the state of Pennsylvania. So we have a lot of support within that.
Did you notice that she trapped me into giving a plug?
I'm really good.
She's gotten used to dealing with you over the
Yeah, it's been a
few
long
months
time.
we've been
Do you guys want these passed around?
No.
Okay, we're
No,
very
hopefully
happy.
I'll see one of those next year.
And
When you
it's
take
a
the course?
required-
When my son
it's a
when my son
required-
takes the course.
We get
It's
office
required.
updates all the time and nobody teaches us how to use it. You go to work one day and they update office and you're like, great, now I don't know what to do.
So this is,
I test people before I hire.
just,
How much stuff.
Well, what if you update it? What if your company updates it? Do you provide training?
Shiloh, help me understand.
It's okay.
Office 365, what are the components that we're training students in? Word, Excel, PowerPoint, what else?
Collaboration. Excel,
Is that their team space now? Is that,
and
Use
did we
your
say database? Just No, say access,
Okay.
access to. And I'll tell you what, the kids that come out of these courses, I mean,
So
here's another plug, but like not really meaning to, but I mean, my daughter took this course as a freshman last year, and this year, so a full year later, I didn't teach her anything. Everything she learned from here, she ended up going to states, and she placed 7th in the entire state of Pennsylvania in spreadsheets, and that's but that's just from what she learned from this course.
well,
The
I
teachers there.
I'll just tell you that in industry now, it is possible to generate so much data on so many things that even within my office, we sit there, I take people aside and just walk through pivot tables and slicers, and it's like eye-opening. It allows people now to start dealing with so much more data and analyzing. And, you know, it's an important aspect, which is at one time, we didn't have, you know, when we were doing numbers on pieces of paper, we became familiar with the numbers and got experience that way. And it's changed now. Now with great quantities of data, to be able to flip them over and turn them over and draw conclusions, it's the new way of being familiar with data. So I think it's great.
This wouldn't go so far as to get into OneNote, Power BI, and all that kind of stuff that Microsoft is doing.
You know, but and it would be great if we eventually got there. Maybe we should have a new course for that. I like the way you think.
I'll send my whole company.
Yeah.
I'll pay for it, that'll fund the books.
We should teach Salesforce.
Salesforce.com, you can really,
Well, the other stuff.
and after that Oracle, after that whole Oracle suite.
Well, we don't do that either.
Any objections?
All right, thank you, Shiloh.
How much have we spent so far?
You really, what's the total so far?
Oh, you already told us that, 330.
32.
Okay.
I don't
So-
wanna do it.
Up next, we have social studies. And Dean Hens.
They draw the short sticks to go last.
Really?
But just for the listening audience, you know, I had a jacket on at the beginning, but I got it.
So you're still wearing it for the listening audience at home.
It's a wonderful jacket.
Thank you for that. It's not many people who could get that color, but okay, keep going.
I think that was a commentary on how long the meeting's going.
So I have 3 textbooks tonight, one for 5th grade, one for 4th grade, and then a supplemental text for AP US. And for each of them, I'll go over the content, the features, the skills that are involved. We'll both talk about some of the costs and take your questions. So this is the first one. This is the 5th grade textbook. So it's for all students in 5th grade. The basic content, it's narrative from colonial time up into the Civil War. The 5th grade class covers the explorer time up until the colonial period. Okay. Primary features of the book, heavy on primary source documents, which is terrific. Biography sections in different sections of history, biographies about notable Americans, a diverse selection of Americans, table of contents. For example, Phyllis Wheatley, who was an African-American poet during the colonial American time. Patrick Henry, Sacagawea is featured in there in different biography sections. Literature and music is covered. And the skills that are emphasized in the textbook as well are interesting. Comparison, contrast, cause and effect, and fact versus fiction. These are the same kind of skills that students will see when they get into AP in the high school. So the skills that they're going to be working on in an elementary setting, the same sorts of things that they're going to be working on in secondary. I'm glad to be bringing the textbook. This is the end of a 2-year pilot. We looked at a couple of different publishers, and I don't know that we actually piloted in the elementary schools 2 different publishers, and I had elementary school teachers that were gracious enough to actually pilot a textbook knowing that it might not be one that we would go with, but they really wanted to take a look at what materials are out there. We started to go with this one. It's the updated version of the Harcourt that we already have, and the cost of it was really attractive. It's the print text is $44.75. That includes the 6-year online access. That includes all the professional development as well. We've already had Harcourt come in and do 1 session of professional development. And they're also going to be coming in over the summer to in-service teachers with the textbook as well. And all the shipping costs they threw that in for free as well. The savings that we got on the textbook, they call it a rollover incentive. Basically, if you look at the price of the textbook, they bundled in the 6-year online access gratis. So, and they also agreed to ship to each of the elementary schools.
Let me ask you a question about that, and I don't mean to be presumptive, and I'm not predicting anything. You list 100 per school, 9 schools. Were we to do something with elementary schools next year? We're not changing the number of students.
Right.
What would you do with the number you're going to?
I would do what I do. It's not uncommon for me to do this during the school year. Hey, I'm short textbooks here. I reach out to grade level coordinators, send an email out, and
so let me
go and deliver.
Let me recharacterize your statement here. It's really intended to be 1 per subject per student,
right? Exactly,
rather than 900. So that's so it really. The end of the story is, I guess, the question I was just trying to be sure of was, you're really targeting your number of students, not your number of buildings.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah. And if those shifts need to happen,
you're going by student. I think it's just that's the end story we're looking for.
So that's the text in grade 5. Questions?
Any objections?
I don't know which slide is next. Is it
I'm sorry.
4? Okay, so we're going to go. So it's the same series from Harcourt. And the thing that I like about students using this text in 4th and in 5th grade, that same emphasis on primary source documents, the biography features, which is interesting because when Pat was here earlier, she mentioned a woman who's the first chief of the Cherokee tribe. She's also featured in this book too. Her name is Wilma Mankiller. To make featuring a diverse cross-section of Americans.
Maybe we could call this Mankiller. Can we change it? We put the K on the end.
She probably got it because she killed the man who was
Well,
the chief before her.
We'll just keep rolling through this.
What do you
Okay.
mean her father?
How this book is different from some of the 5th grade book is 5th grade is more of a narrative history. 4th grade is regional studies. So what they'll do is they'll go into the Northeast, the Southeast, Southwest, and look at the economy of the area, the history of the area, notable Americans of the area. So this book, unlike the 5th grade textbook, is more theme-based. And this is being used in conjunction with a PA textbook that's a little newer that 4th grade teachers have.
What's a PA textbook?
It's a textbook that's specific to Pennsylvania history.
Yeah.
So, the thing that I like about the biography features in here in 4th grade, they do, I don't know if you've ever seen the Student Wax Museum. There's resources in the textbook for that as well. The skills in this textbook, the 5th grade textbook, targets a little bit more reading skills. This is more the graphs, the analytics, the geography is targeted in here too. Same thing here, 6-year online access, discount on the book, and they threw in the shipping for free to each of the elementary school buildings. And again, here this was a pilot. We looked at 2 publishers. We had several teachers across the district that used the book all last year and all of this year too. And the economy of scale with professional development, since both of them from the same publisher, we can do the professional development for teachers that are interested in learning the online access pieces one day. You don't have two publishers come in.
How old, what are you replacing? And I didn't ask this in the previous.
The textbook that we have it has a 2005 copyright, and I believe they purchased it in 2005. So it's out of that 10-year time window. So and the other thing that was lapsing on this, the online access we had for the 2005. I reached out to the sales reps. It's sunset, and they were gracious at extending it. But we're getting to the point where they didn't have the ability to update their old version of the textbook. So that was kind of, I guess, some of the urgency for going with this text at this time.
Any other questions?
But it's again, more of that thing we spoke about earlier on. We're putting ourselves on a 7-year cycle, 6-year cycle.
Yeah, this one's 6 years. It's been my experience with this company though, that if you push it, the relationship's pretty good, and I inherited that from my predecessor, Anna Raberman. The same sales reps have been there. The relationship's been very good, and if I've been in a position where can I extend a year, and there's relationships that you establish with sales reps. It's been really positive.
It's just more advisory for the topic we were talking about before.
Sure, you can hang on to a print copy for 10, 11 years, but it's, it does kind of like lock you into to forcing you to go to like a renewal cycle that's a little bit more prescribed by the publishers. I think they're aware of that, and that's the model that they're using for.
I just gotta make a statement. I mean, for folks outside of public education, and I was one of those a while back, we catch a bad rap here for being financially inefficient sometimes because they don't understand. But what's kind of really neat here is listening to the way that you guys save us money, save the taxpayers money each and every day, that people don't even think about. So, I mean, I think that's worth, a congratulations and a thank you for. At the same time, we're saying, hey, don't do it to the point where it's actually impacting what it is that we do in the classroom. But the fact that you do it, I don't think anybody would ever think about, and you guys don't get any credit for that.
Well, haven't we replaced anything that wasn't falling apart? 2003, 2005.
That's what I mean, but it's not like you're getting any direction to that. You guys are doing it because.
It was interesting on this, and, you're being a little bit too kind, but before, we usually had to put in a minimum of 10% for shipping. And then we only got that less expensive shipping rate when we shipped as a full shipment to Chancellor, and then we had to bring staff in to count out the books, divvy them up, deliver them to each of the schools. So that's huge, both in terms of
they're Amazon Prime now.
Pardon me?
They're Amazon Prime.
Well, I don't care how they do it, but I know the difference is for us.
Drones teacher.
Right?
But I think your point's a good one, Andy. I think that all of the curriculum coordinators, when they're talking with the textbook companies, they really try to negotiate as best they can the best possible deal they can get. Renee talked about getting 7 years with, that's something that required negotiation. Dean, got the shipping and handling as gratis. Like all of those things are ways that all of them try to work at how can we negotiate and get what we absolutely need best for our students at the best possible price that we can get.
We've been known for that. Pat Armley used to bend their arms, so.
And like I said, I learned that from my predecessor and myself and all the coordinators, that it's relationships, those the people that we work with in the publishing, the companies are, I think that's real positive. So, also too, for these two textbooks, the print and the online teacher materials, that's all gratis as well. In fact, they were kind enough to actually, they're going to deliver the teacher materials, the print and the access code for online before the end of the school year, before they're actually like budgeted approved. And I said that's real important. I want the teachers to have those in their hands when they go out before they leave for the summer. So they were flexible with that too, which was
great,
So
terrific.
Everybody good?
Mm-hmm. And then the last one is this is a volume. It's called Taking Sides. It's used in AP US history, and It's topics in U.S. history that have some controversy involved with them, such as the dropping of the atomic bomb, interpretations of why we entered World War I and that type of thing. It will present the viewpoints of two authors, two sometimes very diametrically opposed viewpoints, hence the name Taking Sides. This was in the budget for last year, the volume 1. We were going to try to do volume 1 and 2 last year, but I was looking at where we kind of economize a little bit. We did volume 1 for this year, and then this is the volume 2. It goes from Reconstruction to the present. This is an update of a version that we're using right now. This has some different authors in it, so this will be used in the APUS history course. And the authors are the best that are out there. Kennedy's book about the Great Depression is featured in here, an excerpt from it. John Lewis Gaddis in the Cold War, Eric Foner, noted historian with Reconstruction. So this is the kind of thing that AP are looking for when students go into Read It DBQ. They need to take a position, make a claim. This is the kind of material that can help students develop those points of views away from the textbook. The writings that are in there, it's not just the facts, it's taking the facts and offering analysis. So,
How many
great for
kids
class
use
discussion.
AP?
What's that?
How many kids use AP?
How many
AP US history? How many kids use
sections? I don't know the number, but I would tell you in each high school, 2 to 3 sections usually per year, and that can fluctuate from year to year. But there's at least 2.
So 2 to 3 sections, how many kids are sections?
25-ish students.
Yeah, so it's roughly 150 kids taken.
And this is something we would use in the classroom that wouldn't necessarily travel and come back. And we've had success with this before. This series, I think there's Taking Sides series for just about all the curricular areas that are out there.
Any other questions? Any objections? Going once.
Okay, go on. Okay, sure.
Thank you, Dean.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and our last content area is secondary language arts. Andrea, I'm going to hand this over to you so you can lead
The
this
cast
slide.
of thousands, you couldn't get priority with the bigger cast.
Thank you.
I did bring with me some department coordinators who are also teachers at both the middle schools and at North, because in the case of the middle schools, these titles have been piloted. And I thought if you had any questions about the specific titles, I might be able to ask the teachers who've actually worked with them. And in the case of North, it's a new text that the 3 teachers have looked through and are asking for purchase. I know you might recall last year, we were here together, we talked about the need for new titles and how you all said your own children have come home and just really crave something new and more compelling, maybe more current to read. And these books were actually requested, all but the one for North. These books were requested last year by these teachers. They were piloted successfully. They fell in love with them. The kids fell in love with them. And we decided to postpone for the same reasons you've heard previously, that we were also asking for high school new titles, so to ask for middle school new titles at the same time seemed a little pricey. So we separated it by 2 years just to kind of offset that cost. So I'll just tell you, we want to just hit this button, it'll go through. So a quick overview for the folks who can't see the titles listed. We've got 6 titles for the middle schools that are being requested. They're all fiction. 2 are for Literacy 7 and Literacy Skills 7. One is Fish in a Tree, one is One for the Murphys. English 7 is requesting The Wednesday Wars. Honors English 7 is requesting The Hobbit, which thrilled me because we used to teach that in fantasy fiction, which we no longer have at the high schools. English 8, The Running Dream and Notes from the Midnight Driver are the totals. I thought too, while I put in the presentation, just one more slide. I put in the presentation some book reviews because I thought rather than just, in general, they're all compelling stories with strong protagonists going through some challenges and hopefully helping the protagonists get through to some point of success. So we're trying to teach skills to our students that match the themes. For example, in 7th grade, the theme of self-discovery will be reflected and will be something that the teachers can help the kids work through in really active, impressive in-class discussions. But the book reviews, I thought if I could read those out to you too, that'll help you put it into more context, so make it a little bit more specific and see how the variety is. And then if you have any questions about any of the titles, we've got the teachers here who can certainly answer that. So for Fish in a Tree, which is the first one I sent around, that would be for Literacy 7, Literacy Skills 7.
School Library Connection says it's unforgettable and uplifting, deals with the hardships of middle school in a funny yet realistic and thoughtful manner. Allie has a great voice. She is an unforgettable, plucky protagonist that the reader roots for from page 1. This novel is a must-have. And please stop me if you would like me to pause between titles, but just to give you an overview. The next one for Literacy 7, Literacy Skills 7, one for the Murphys. Voice of Youth Advocates says, this debut novel holds its own. Affectingly told, believing that she can someday have a loving family of her own makes a different kind of happy ending. Middle grade and teen readers will find this an engaging story. Next up, English 7 and Literacy Learning 7, The Wednesday Wars. Book page says it's an accessible, humorous school story and at the same time an insightful coming-of-age tale. Book list says Schmidt makes the implausible believable and the everyday momentous, a gentle, hopeful, moving story. Honors English 7, The Hobbit. Classic. Hornbook Guide, all those young or old who love a finely imagined story beautifully told will take The Hobbit to their hearts. Great title. English 8, The Running Dream. Kirkus Reviews says it's inspirational. The pace of Van Dren's prose matches Jessica's at her swiftest. Readers will zoom through the book just as Jessica blazes around the track. A lively and lovely story.
You sound like a presenter at the Oscars here.
I just should read some long title at the end.
The middle schools. English 8, Notes from the Midnight Driver. According to American Library Association, even minor characters such as Alex's parents and the judge take on a heft and weight uncommon in young adult literature, and teens will easily connect with Alex's epiphanies. It all adds up to a funny, bittersweet tour de force. And that's it for the middle school titles. I can continue on to the high school title if you like, or we can stop there. Okay, so the final title that we're asking for would be specifically for our resource English and a prescriptive reading, which our special ed students are served in that specific course. This title, Drums, Girls, and Dangerous Pie. Similarly to the middle school teacher's request, this title was requested to give the students something that is accessible to their reading challenges, but on their content level and maturity level so that they would feel they had something of substance to be able to discuss. So according to Book List, Sonam Blickett shows that even in the midst of tragedy, life goes on, love can flower, and the one thing you can always change is yourself. So we've asked to order enough books so that those pilot books that we have had before that were purchased from building monies will remain. So you're going to see those numbers are varied based on which schools piloted, say 1 class set or 2 class sets. So they are per building a little bit varied, but we will wind up having all the titles in all the 3 schools, soon to be 2 schools. And with the special ed course, the resource English and prescriptive reading, those titles, these books were only asked for from North. And what typically happens in those situations is if it's successful and it seems like a book that the students really enjoy, then word spreads to South and vice versa, and they'll probably request a set as well.
I guess my question around this is just proportionally, the protagonist in this exclusive of the Hobbit, I can't forget it, but exclusive of that, the protagonists in terms of gender mix, is there hopeful that it's pretty balanced in terms of male, and I'm not saying that I'm saying that because I'm trying to have young people interested in reading, and young people are more interested in reading than people they can identify with. And
I can certainly jump in whenever you'd like to, but I can certainly say that when we do our pilot groups, before they even select a title, the teachers involved will see where are our holes, where in our curriculum are we not seeing representation. So do we see, for example, in a certain grade level, all of our protagonists are boys, or all of our protagonists are, in this socioeconomic area. Right. What do we need to be able to have the kids see to recognize so they can make some connections and see the diversity that we have? So you might see something reflected in that particular stack that plugs a hole at a certain grade level that might have needed attention.
Well, and I bring it up because, one, I'm interested in these people becoming readers and reading about themselves is good. But the other thing, which is we do screen our books and we talk about that it's showing people inappropriate, it's not, all the men are going off to work and all the ladies are staying home. That was in the 60s, that's how the books looked. But we also look at what we're doing in the diversity space within our district. And wanting to see that we have people who might not otherwise have historically been portrayed in a professional role. Are they the protagonists, in a positive light? where they might not have been in the past? Have we, I don't know if we've identified holes for that or not. I was joking because I had turned, one of the books I had turned and it was a reference to, I didn't read the whole book because towards the end, but she was going to a synagogue for service. And I was laughing that they had transliterated Hebrew. So I'm wondering, do we encourage what would normally be a diversity topic that to characterize persons with diverse experience as the protagonist and not in a stereotypical role as might become.
I can certainly speak to that unless you would like to. I would think, keeping in mind that in the various courses of the grade levels, we also have the nonfiction components too. So I know we did compile a list of things that we're reading in those specific courses regarding diversity. So I know we certainly have a list that we provide everybody, but we've already put that together just to make sure that we're trying to plug those holes. I think these specific titles, as we had said previously, we have the luxury in English language arts of being able to.
You have a broad selection.
Well, we're picking fiction. So what we do have the luxury of is the lesson plan includes, if you do see a certain individual who's in a stereotypical situation, there's a class discussion about that. That's when you start talking about diversity and why was it written this way, and how would it have been written differently, and what do you see the problems with this, and it's really conversation starters.
See,
that's the other content areas don't get to do that.
Now that's something I'd like to see us discuss a little more at some other meeting. We've talked about diversity in different forums, and we have certain components for dealing with diversity or alerting our students to diversity and educating them on. And that's something I don't think we've come up before as a discussion item here about classroom-led discussions around opportunities to discuss diversity. So I appreciate bringing that forward.
Absolutely. English language arts teachers are fiercely fond of discussion. So that's one of the #1 components, I'd say, any work with a piece of fiction.
Are any of these books online also?
I don't, they're all under a certain copyright.
Linda Maloney Hunt, last year, she was part of the Global Read Aloud, which was great also. So I did that and started pilot with that, and so she had chapters that are online. So that was great. She did a whole big thing. A lot, some of them, because they're newer, not quite. That's part of that problem. She also wrote one for the Murphys, which is great because so they're just contemporary way of dealing with a lot of different diversity. And I think when we as a department at the whole middle level, we just split and we divided books amongst ourselves to read. And I think some of us just could put them down. We're like, okay, we're going to do another one. And I think we were excited because, as you heard tonight, like a lot of the books haven't been updated. And I think we feel a lot of the same way with the novels that we currently have.
We like to energize our
curriculum. Excuse me.
That's okay. I was just, if some of the kids read online, I mean, some of the kids, particularly, I think kids with learning disabilities, some of them read better with books, but some of them read better online. And so it's particularly because you can change the number of words on a page.
Mm-hmm.
That's how most of them are very good.
I'm sure most of them are
kind of
available
stuff
for a Kindle or a download.
Right.
Yeah, that's
Well,
what
Yeah, no, they are available, yeah.
Are
But
they-
not coming off.
Have you confirmed that they're all, and I asked the question looking for the
we would-
special ed
yeah,
perspective,
That's my question.
just,
So
well,
the kid could.
we might be paying for it in certain applications, which would be
Oh,
in a
okay.
special
Yeah, yeah, I
education
agree.
institution,
Okay.
situation.
Okay.
I imagine those are in common print. I imagine
Yeah.
most of those are
Oh,
available
yeah,
on Kindle.
That's not right.
And then you could do
Yeah.
text to speech for a child
Yeah.
who was dyslexic or had other reading impairment. You could do text to speech for almost every one of those.
Yes.
And are they also available, just out of curiosity, following that line, are they also available? Do we ever check, or maybe we could check that in the future? Just, if they're also available on Audible, because so many books are available on Audible.
Fish in the Tree, if I have that.
On Audible, but I imagine many aren't. It would be an interesting,
I know
looking at the
that.
special education component of it. I'd be fascinated to see that just in future years, if you could make a note for the fiction rate, if it's available.
Well, we're
Because,
spending so little money, we probably can't say it, but it'd be great if we said, okay, you can have 5 electronic online. And that way, if we needed them, we would have them.
I have to tell you, the Audible books, I don't know these, but I've been ridden in the car to listen to a book in Audible, and it was part of my wife's book club, and it is amazing how much you can get from a well-read book.
Absolutely.
If you have the time to listen to it.
I'm teaching a novel right now in my class where I'm using Audible. So they're hearing the audio and reading along. And I have to say, I think it increases their comprehension exponentially.
Yeah.
It happens to be a book that has multiple characters that keep switching back and forth. So for a lot of kids, especially those who struggle with comprehension.
But is it
that
read by one
audio-
reader?
No,
Oh,
it's
okay.
read by different readers, so they associate the voice with the character. So
I-
it really is.
I think for middle school attention span, that's probably.
Yes.
The whole girl with the dragon tattoo thing, I did that whole series in the car. And it's amazing because it's one speaker, but they moderate their voice and you can, it's very resourceful.
They look like good books.
I'm sorry, I think something we'd have to check, if you suggested like buying a couple versions of the book on Kindle, we'd have to look at copyright laws with that, because typically with with your Kindle, your Amazon license, or if you have a Nook, it's linked to that one person's account. So we may not be able to buy a couple of those. We'd have to look into that to see how that would work for educational purposes.
Public libraries, among other libraries, you can borrow electronically, and there's a curation aspect to it, to lend and retrieve.
But if our IEP says we have to do it electronically,
We have
we've
to
got to
scan.
give them an iPad or something anyway.
Correct, yes.
So I was thinking more that if we were buying a number and we said we could have 5, it would be used on those school-owned iPads that we would have had to buy anyway.
Well, let's do it.
Well, it
for
depends
IEP.
on how you get a license
Right.
for.
But if we had to do it anyway, we found a way already.
We'll do it out of
Is
the
my
IEP.
point.
Let's do it out of the IEP budget, once we.
Our library management system, Destiny, supports electronic books, checking them out, checking them back.
I'm just saying, if we have to do it, we're already doing it somehow.
Yes.
We may not use all 5,
I wouldn't even
but
buy
if
it.
we're buying 100 of them,
I won't even buy mine. When I need it, but then they become a resource, because you can get them like that electronically, rather than commit the money up front, where you may not ever need
no, I
it.
said include it. Buying the 100 books from me, including a couple of electronic.
No,
It's nothing.
the deal.
Any
They're
other
not
questions?
the deal numbers yet from this level.
Any objections? Any public comment? Thank you, ladies, and thank you for
Thank you.
staying.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much.
It looked like great books.
You should read The Hobbit and watch the movie.
It's being up to 1. No, I'm giving this one.
So
Is it?
She's
Are
a great.
Kyle, you
Yes,
wanna-
I'm sorry. I hate to say it, but I do it on my camera. In the gym, where I see you all the
Where
time.
you've seen